So
what
happened tonight? Oh, blimey.
It's street talk time, and because we're in the run up to Christmas, Coronation Street has decided to give us some really horrible storylines to talk about. So this isn't going to be very much fun.
It's going to be lots of fun. We'll make it fun.
No, we're not going to make it fun, darling.
Before we started, I made sure that I had my pad and my pen and paper, so that every time I say something insensitive and Gemma glares at me, I can write it down and cut it out to the actual podcast. It's not even funny
that you say that, honestly.
Look.
Yes.
We got to keep it light-hearted.
No, we don't.
People got sad watching Friday's Coronation Street, and they want some light-hearted bants between us.
It's not our responsibility to cheer them up.
Oh, no. It's fine.
It's sad.
It was flipping sad. But yeah, that was the main of it. It was great, and I felt it tonight. I'm crying.
Come on.
But I just love it how on Corrie it can get really excited with all the high action and the sensationalism and the explosions and the guns and all that it can be like second to none at that. The emotion stuff tonight, it can get right. It can get the comedy stuff. The sad. It can do the comedy. I just love how when a good Coronation Street episode doesn't have to fall into a specific category. It did this right, therefore it ticked these boxes, so it's a good Coronation Street episode. It can be good in very many different ways. And if it was, I really did enjoy tonight's episode. But if it was like that all the time, I don't think I'd really want to watch it. Mm-hmm. But no, I thought it was fantastic. I'm ready for maybe a little bit of lightheartedness. But I think that's what they were trying to go for with the other stories this week. But none of them really worked for me. I was glad that tonight's episode was solely dedicated to the Ollie Wobbles storyline, because it just kind of felt that it's almost like they wanted to dedicate the whole week for it. So then they were like, well, what do we do to fill up, 10 minutes of all the other episodes, shove in some of the stories to die for a bit.
What? Stories to die?
Send them out. These rubbish stories, they're going to be a bit rubbish. Let's just send them out there. Let's put them in the graveyard slot.
I'm on the front line.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know what I mean? So, yes. so that they can have the story where Ollie is sent to die and it's for the rest of it, and then taking centre stage on Friday. But the Corrie is good when it dedicates whole episodes to certain stories. And it doesn't happen very much, but in the last few years we've seen more of it. Like, obviously, there was about a year ago we had Sinead's death episode, which was just that one story. We had a couple in that storyline actually that was just that one. The Aidan suicide episode. I think it is a really effective storytelling method.
Yeah.
That's what I...
Right, so this is the street talk. We've got five things happen this week. The main thing, as you said, was the Oliver storyline.
Yes, I'm calling it All Over for Oliver tonight. Although it wasn't quite all over yet, but it seems like, if we didn't know so already, that it was there's a end in sight, it feels, and there's no coming back.
We've got Todd's on the pool. Pull.
Why are you just not responding to me at all? Why are you not bantering with me tonight?
I'm not bantering because it's sad. Aladdin, which is Alina and Adam.
No.
What is it called then?
I'm going to call it Alina's Highland Fling.
Oh, okay.
Because I tried to come up with a shipping name for Adam and Alina, and Aladdin was the best that I could come up with. It's kind of in there somewhere, but I don't think it's there, so we'll call it Alina's Highland Fling, because as you know, Adam is a smug Scottish kid.
No.
And we had Sean and Michael, which I didn't have a storyline title for because nothing really happened. And then there was a tiny, tiny bit of the Robert Johnny story, but that didn't go anywhere on Wednesday. So you're doing the synopsising for the Oliver story, aren't you?
Mhm. Right. Shall I start?
Yeah, you start. So
on Monday,
please allow me interruptions if I want them.
On Monday, Steve finds Leanne at the hospital, and she hasn't gone home, and she is sad, and she has to go about Nick, who she's banished. Nick's back home, he doesn't know what to do, and Tracy says, you have to go to court for Oliver.
Yes, because it was a hearing on Monday, wasn't it? Basically, Monday was everyone apart from Leanne having their say on Monday, and then Leanne on Wednesday?
And then they gave the verdict on Friday.
Yeah.
Which was the whole episode. So, Wendy, what was she? The Guardian, the liaison, she's sided with the hospital. And Imran tells them that today they just need to listen, then they'll get to say their bit, and then there'll be the verdict, like we just said. And Elliot he's the solicitor. Imran's just his like little helper with a fancy laptop cover. And Elliot's going to do whatever he can. And Leanne's like, well, everyone's against us.
I told you when we were watching that episode, tonight's episode, during that very, very long verdict, when it was just fading in and out and everything, Imran didn't have his laptop plugged in. You know me and my laptop plugging in, and I was just waiting for him to stand up in the middle and say, sorry, Judge, I just need to interrupt you. It says I'm on 5% or lower. Have you got a spare power cord or something that I can use?
Somebody must hoover this place.
The cleaners, they were just waiting to come in and clean up after the verdict today.
Well, there was a lot of
Leanne was rooted in there.
fluids around Leanne's chair in the form of snot and tears that they needed to clean up.
Well, they probably had to send in the
hazmat suits.
Yeah, COVID warning.
So Tracy turns up to wish them good luck, and she says Nick's there too, and he's struggling. Leanne doesn't care about anybody but herself and Oliver at the moment. She tells him to bog off, and it was only a few weeks ago that you wanted to pull the plug. Nick sees Toya in the hospital, and she's sort of
she's kind of siding with him a bit. Well, she's not siding with him necessarily. She's understanding
she's sympathetic
him
to everybody, isn't she?
And Nick has been he's obviously been banished by Leanne, and there's a lot of people that are too scared to stand up against Leanne, and so yeah, basically Nick's got no allies apart from Toya, who's quite brave actually. But maybe she thinks that, I don't know, maybe it's partly the counsellor in her, I suppose, but maybe she thinks, well, there's no way that Leanne would banish me, but I think she would.
Oh, she'd banish everybody. Nick says, imagine if we lose Oliver, then we lose each other.
This is hard.
Dr. Hospital is giving her evidence to the judge.
Oh yeah, that's right, wasn't it? It was Monday was the hospital side of the evidence, and then it was the pull the plug side on Monday getting their talk, and then it was the keeping going side on Wednesday.
That's right, Michael, the pulling the plug team. That's what they call themselves.
Yeah, team pull the plug.
Dr. Hospital says about the high level of sedation, it's just reducing his seizures, but it's hastening brain degeneration. It doesn't really matter. Whatever happens, there's no reversing what's already taken place. And the only kind thing to do is to take him off life support. And Leanne's listening to that. I don't know how you could listen to people talking about your child like this. She's trying to hold back the tears. She's giving her Jenny Bradley death stare. Pretty good at Dr. Hospital. Leanne feels like it's hopeless after the evidence has been given, and she strops off. And Steve is apologising to Elliot if they seemed ungrateful. Leanne just really, it's like she read How to Win Friends and Influence People and said, no, this is rubbish. I'll do the opposite of everything that it says in here. Steve and Leanne are back at the flat later, and they're talking about what it was like when she first found out that she was pregnant with Oliver. And she says, you always understood the batters being me. You're the only bloke who fully gets me.
Oh yeah, this is when it starts to get a little bit weird, doesn't it?
Well,
yeah,
she's obviously blown off a lot of steam. She's getting drunk. She gets more and more drunk. She drinks almost an entire bottle of white wine to herself. And then she starts horning over Steve and kind of says, oh, take me to bed. She sobers up and comes to her senses and leaves. No, she's left by herself. Steve goes home and leaves her, like saying, this isn't what you want. I know this is not what you want. I'm really surprised they didn't explore the kind of idea that maybe she was thinking secretly, I can have another baby with Steve.
In what way? I don't. Well, she's not thinking replacement is needed.
No, I know, but you know what I mean. It's weird because obviously they only slept together once she had a baby. I don't know. I just thought, like, if you were to sleep with somebody and the only time you ever had before you had a baby, and then the baby's what you're worried about. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. I thought she had an ulterior motive almost, but she obviously didn't because it never came up again.
No, she's just her head's all over the place, isn't she? And and everyone seems to be abandoning her at the moment. So she's just looking for somebody's arms to fall into.
Well, she hasn't got anybody because she rejects every single person that tries to help her.
And up to this point, Steve is
Steve's
still on her side.
one of her only allies, along with Toya.
Yeah, so I did really like the reminiscing part of it, because I mean Steve and Leanne could possibly have potential somewhere, but they haven't had a whole lot of scenes together. Like I said, it was very kind of, wham bam thank you ma'am when they got her pregnant, and even then it was a secret, wasn't it? We saw somebody go into Leanne's flat that one night, and they didn't show who it was, and it wasn't until later that we realised it was Steve that had gone in there. So they're probably reminiscing all about that as well. Like, oh, do you remember that?
Funny?
Remember that time when we had everyone tenterhooks to see
yeah.
who it was that came? Oh, do you remember that time when it gave birth to Ollie in a lift?
Yeah.
What drama?
So Steve goes home. He's not really in the right state of mind to debrief Tracy about what happened on the court case, and she's very understanding. She asks how Leanne was, and he's like, bites her head off and goes upstairs to have a lay down. Tracy gets on the phone to Toya and finds out that she's having a meltdown at the hospital, and then Steve comes down and hears about what's going on, and she's like, what happened? And so Steve tells Tracy about the fact that Leanne came on to him and says that it was nothing, she didn't know what she was doing, she was drunk, she was grieving, like, it's fine, we didn't do anything, but, I have to let you know. So Tracy can't let it rest, goes to the hospital, and she does a mini fake out. She's like, "Oi, Battersby, I know you're struggling and everything, but you must be in a really bad way for coming on to Steve, ha 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 ha."
Yeah, she was the queen of fake outs this week, wasn't she? But we know that Billy was the archdeacon of fake outs.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, so they have a little chat, heart-to-heart chat, with Leanne crying and Tracy sympathising, and Leanne's kind of starting to admit that she thinks that this court case, they're not going to win it. Wednesday, we start with the Mr. Men, and this was like the theme of the last 2 days worth of episodes. Was like the Mr. Man was like a metaphor for Oliver's life, and Steve was coming to the end of the books. And like in real life,
they laid it on a bit thick. It reminded me, and you didn't see this, of when Sinead was dying, and they had that "We're Going on a Bear Hunt," the Michael Rosen story that they were reading. Who was it? Was it Sinead was reading it to Bertie or something, and then as Sinead was slipping away, Daniel was reading it to Bertie as well, and I think that they were getting you by the feels that you have when you think back to childhood and getting all the nostalgia and childhood innocence and everything, and they were kind of trying to get you in the same place as that, and it worked, but it might have been more effective maybe if it didn't remind me of that and make me think they're just trying to rehash the On a Bear Hunt book bit.
The metaphor doesn't... Well, the idea was that they're coming to the end of the books, but if it's your life, you can't just start again, unless you believe in reincarnation. So once the book's finished, you can't just start all over again. Because he kept saying, we're coming to the end, I'm going to order some more. And there's not really...
Well, that was a bit confusing to me, because it's like, we've read 12 books, now we're on to the last, I think there's more than 12 Mr. Men books. Well, he discovered that there was Little Miss in today's episode,
there's
didn't
still
he?
Hope, Leanne, there's Little Miss books as well. If I'm ever dying, please don't read me Mr. Men or Little Miss or Going on a Bear Hunt or anything.
Or the Wikipedia page of Roger Hargreaves.
Really complicated. I'll
read your War and Peace just so that you can hang on for a little bit longer.
I thought it was really interesting that they decided to read Mr. Men. It's not a very modern... I don't know, how popular is it with children?
Oh, I think kids still read that.
I think this is deliberately chosen because it has a very universal appeal, and it's been around for a very long time. Many of the people who are watching it who have been parents, are parents now, or have children who are grown up, would have remembered reading Mr. Men probably at some point, or having dealings with Mr. Men. Whereas like if it was a modern children's book, people wouldn't have quite the same, it wouldn't evoke quite the same memories. This was like a universal appeal to the feeling of reading your child a story.
Yeah, definitely. But also because some of the themes and ideas in the Mr. Men book are quite black and white and made it easier. Like, I mean, the fact that the two ones that got a name check today were Mr. Tickle and Mr. Wrong, and I think they chose Mr. Wrong because of the whole idea of right and wrong and what's right for Ollie, and doctors getting things wrong and everything. It is all supposed to tie in there, so it was quite neatly done.
Yeah. So he's reading Oliver Mr. Men before court, and Leanne says goodbye to Oliver and says, "We're going to win this, I just know it." So in the hallway, they're getting their stories straight, and then they head off together to the court. Peter sees Nick outside the flats and says, "Leanne's going to come around, don't worry about it, you'll be back together." But Leanne's outside the court waiting to go in because, like you said, it's their turn to sort of give their side of the story, and she's freaking out because Steve hasn't even got a tie on. Simon's getting worried, everybody's just freaking out, and they're... she's trying to hold everything together, but she's also really worried as herself. Simon's the first person to stand up, and he says he thinks the doctors are wrong, and Leanne's like, yes, right, that's right, the doctors are wrong.
Oh yeah, that was so sad when he was saying his bit. It's like she'd fed him the lines.
Yes.
Not that he didn't mean it, but he was saying everything that she wanted to, and you could see watching him then. She was really proud of him, and she was like tearing up out of sadness, but also of pride because of him saving his brother's life. That was lovely.
I thought this was really weird though.
Why?
I just don't understand it kind of feels like the judge already, like the whole thing was a bit of a sham, and it'd already been decided, because I can't see, if you've got no medical experts on your side at all, and your whole argument is that I don't believe that they're correct and doctors can be wrong.
I know,
but it just feels a bit like, well, mentally we need to give them an outlet so that they can come and say, you're wrong, and they can say to themselves, well, we did everything we could,
I think you're right, yeah. I mean, it was inevitable. I mean, for us as viewers, it was inevitable. They were never going to turn it around and say, oh, you know what, keep him going. And for a lot of the characters involved, it was also inevitable. I know that, say Imran was there saying, we need to win this, and Leanne did, and I think everybody, who knew what they were talking about, though, really knew deep down, or knew quite overtly, that there was only one outcome for this trial, then maybe it was a waste of time doing it. But if somebody slaps you around the face with a glove, you got to give them a duel, and that's what Leanne had done, isn't it? She's like, I need to save a piece so that, like you said, she can say, I've done all what. Maybe they wanted her to be able to say, okay, I've done everything I could now, but as we saw in this episode, she's still not letting go of that bone yet.
No, and obviously there always needs to be some kind of thing in place whereby you can challenge things like this. It just seems like in this situation, just seems like you say, completely hopeless.
Yeah.
So Simon's saying that the doctors are wrong, and now it's Leanne's turn. So she goes on the stand and she says, people all over the world are hunting for a cure, and they are going to find it, and I want him to be alive when that happens. And I don't know who's questioning her, but they say, do you know his condition is getting worse? And she says, yes, he's getting better, like there is hope, he's responding. And she's reading through this log of like things that she's written down about every time he reacted to something, and she's crying, and she's just a mess,
One thing I found interesting there, and maybe this is just the nitpicky nerd in me, but some of the dates that they were giving were like Saturdays and things, and that just made me twitch with my Coronation Street 3-day week kind of thing. Like,
you nerd.
Yeah, he's responding. He's sitting up and conversing with us. It's just, not on days when they got episodes. You're going to believe me.
When the cameras aren't there, he's fine.
Yeah. Whenever the cameras are there, we're like, come on, Ollie, smile for the camera.
Typical.
Kids.
So she gets asked, are there any movements he can't control? And she says there are some, and then she starts bleeding directly to the judge, who is a woman as well. She says, he's my son, he's the little boy I gave birth to, and then says, this could happen to any of you, and when it does, you want people to listen to you and care, because there's nothing you can do. And she just really encapsulates this hopeless feeling you get when you get told something about medical something or other, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's just the absolute bleak unfairness of the inevitability of some of these things that can happen. So after she's made this impassioned plea to the court, she worries that she might have ruined it all because she admitted that some of the movements were involuntary, and Elliot's like, but you're right.
She's kind of made to say that, isn't she? It was a yes or no. Do you accept that some of what you're saying was, was voluntary, was a response? Do you admit that some of it wasn't? And the fact that she said, well, some of it could have been involuntary, that implies that all of it guilty. Could have been involuntary. Yeah,
and then it says that you have to just accept that all of them could have been. There's nothing you can, you have to accept it. So she this is terrible. Next, we see Amy and Emma going into the flats, and they get a reporter jumps out at them.
This is a weird scene. I feel like this might be cut for Canada.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, have you got any? You're the relatives of the boy they're going to murder. You got anything to say about it?" She's being nice and everything.
Emma opens her mouth to speak, and Amy like, "No,
don't tell her anything." Fizz comes over, and they're all sort of telling this woman to get lost.
Yeah, and then that's when Emma says, "Oh, Fizz, you're so wise, like an owl or something."
And Fizz's like, "I do like owls, actually. Owl print everything."
That's Mary.
Nick, but owls were everywhere like 5 years ago, weren't they?
Were they?
Yes.
In the midst of Harry Potter.
Nick has a little sneaky visit to go see Oliver, and this scene was like the most jaw-dropping scene I've seen in Coronation.
This wasn't it? This could have been a twist.
He's sitting there and he's sort of saying to Oliver, it's Oliver in the bed, Nick and Toya alone, and Nick is talking about how he can't understand why Leanne won't let it go, or like he knows that this is the end for Oliver, and how can... He's just talking about the fact that he has to say goodbye, like everyone has to say goodbye to Oliver, and there's nothing anybody can do. And Toya says, "You know what? If you want, you can switch the machine off right now. I won't say anything. Just switch him off. Just lean over. It'd be the easiest thing in the world." And I was like, oh my God.
I know. And the thing with this week's episode was that there was a sense of kind of crushing inevitability about it. Not that it was predictable or anything like this, but there was only one way that it could go. So there weren't many shocks in it. But that particular line, even though it was just for a split second.
This was such a fantastic scene. It really put everything into perspective. Everybody who's watching this going, "Oh, Leanne, just give it up. I can't believe you're still holding on to hope. It's obvious. You got to let him go. She's being so silly." I know some people are very unsympathetic, not very many people, but some people still don't get it. But so Toya says to Nick, "Switch this machine off."
What they should have done is have her say that, and then just like the sound of the needle scratching on the record, and like, and everyone stops and people drop something, and then Toya goes, "Sorry, I was just trying to do a curry fake out. Is this how you do a curry fake out?"
It's just a fake out. Not really. Yeah. No, what she says is, that's what you're asking Leanne to do. Like that scene was so effective to me, to just put everything back into perspective, because it would be very easy to watch this and just see this as a woman, see Leanne as a woman who's unhinged, who can't accept reality, and is, if you want to take a really uncharitable view of it, she's wasting everyone's time, because we get a different perspective about that on Friday. But put it right into perspective. Toya did it excellently by saying, if you're not going to turn off the machine yourself, you are in no position to tell this woman how to react when she's being told she's fighting for her child's life and she's being told there's no hope. I thought this was the most powerful scene, and Toya was fantastic. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I was like, is she like going, yeah, you've got to be cruel to be kind?
Gone bad.
No, she's like, well, as a counsellor, I just think if we told her that we unplugged him to put the vacuum cleaner in, she'd have to accept it, wouldn't she? Anyway,
have enhanced cleaning during these times.
It's enhanced cleaning protocols. So that scene with Nick and Toya was my favourite scene of the whole week.
Wow. And there was some stiff competition.
There was a lot of competition, and most of it was with Leanne, because Jane Danson again.
Jane Danson was just
I don't
fantastic.
know how she manages to keep adding, like upping the ante somehow, and finding a new well of emotion to to draw from in almost every scene that she's in, and the grief feels constantly fresh and raw. It's just
It does.
incredible.
It's for me. It is
one
not
of the best
coming
performances
across
on Coronation Street.
Absolutely, it's not coming across because you get so many characters that are just have sad scenes thrown at them. And they just cry, and sometimes it's like, oh come on, fed up with this now, or here we go, here come the waterworks. But for this, it doesn't feel like it. It feels so authentic and real, and kind of guttural. Something within her, just like, ugh. She was so good, and it just makes me wonder if they'd given it to like Michelle and
why are you doing this? You don't need to do this.
I'm just
you
saying
don't need to. You don't need to.
I suppose the Rory stuff is quite.
You
good.
don't need to. So she's done a really good job, and also I think it's the script writing and the storylining too, because we're following a logical progression of the story, and they've managed to work this around all the COVID stuff. Like, I think Yasmin's stories really suffered from pacing because of COVID, but the Ollie storyline has managed to get through it pretty unscathed, I think, because we're following a logical progression, and it feels like I feel like we're not running out of story. It's not like we're like, it's not like we're spinning the wheels. We're still
keep these plates spinning until December for the 60th, because it also feels like the end of this story could, I mean, not the end, but I guess the end for Ollie could happen before the 60th as well. It has
to really happen. I really don't want it to be dragged out through to December, because although I understand this is a really important storyline, I just don't go for the whole juxtaposition of Christmas with misery. I know that EastEnders loves doing it, but I don't think Corrie's the right place.
I'm sure they still will, but this...
There's going to be lots of crying at Christmas. There's going to be an empty place at the Christmas dinner table. You know,
But the actual, switching off of the machines or pulling out the tube.
Well, I don't think they do it like at the same time. They right, we're going to unplug him, but we're going to plug the Christmas lights in at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we need a spare plug.
Or maybe they just, when sometimes they do those cuts from one scene to another, they're pulling the tube out and then they cut to somebody pulling a cracker.
Yeah, no? Why not? Why not?
No,
you should have written
you're
this
right.
Into them.
It's absolutely. It feels like the pacing is just right for this. I don't think there's, I know that other people have a different opinion on this because I've read it online, but I have not felt that this has been plate spinning in the same way as the Jeff and Yasmin one has. But you're right.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion on this, and I can understand why you might think this is dragging out a bit. But I just think logically, it's not like we've had an unchanging situation the entire time. We've followed a logical chain of progression. Although it always had the same destination from the very beginning, we knew that this wasn't really going to work out well for Oliver as soon as he ended up in the hospital bed.
Yeah. With the Yasmin one as well, it literally felt like it was just about to hit a big climax before they had to stop filming in March as well, because it was like, Yasmin, your court case is tomorrow. Oh no, you've got a heart attack. Let's put it back for a little bit longer. And maybe they would have had a trial and then she'd have been found guilty and we'd have just been having the appeal now or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's worked better for this.
So the next thing we see in the court case is Steve on the stand, and he's saying they need to let Oliver take all the time he needs because they're... What else can you say? Simon gets home and Emma and Amy have downloaded the new FIFA for him. This was kind of sweet, like the children sort of bonding and trying to find some happiness in their life. Toya tries to reassure Nick about what Leanne's feelings for him are, but he thinks that she's not in love with him anymore, and that's it. He's ruined every chance he had with her by telling the truth, basically. So they have summing up time in court, and when it's all over, Steve wants to try to get Leanne home to have a rest, but she won't. She goes straight back to the hospital to see Oliver, and she finds Nick there, and she has to go at Toya for letting him in, and Toya's like, look, I know how you're feeling, Leanne, but Nick's also feeling bad too. Bye. So she leaves them to have a talk, which doesn't really amount to much more than Leanne saying, get out, I don't need you. Then we see Toya going back to the Rovers, and she kind of looks like this is over.
That was a great scene as well. I for one, I loved that Fizz was in it, and what I seriously think that this needed was Toya and Fizz having a proper chat, because they used to be great friends and flatmates, and we're talking, 15 years or so ago, and they got so close, and it felt this week it was them saying, oh, we need to give Jenny McAlpine some scenes. Look, she's contracted for this many scenes, let's throw her into a few scenes. But the scenes that she was given weren't the scenes that she would have been best used in. I think that because we didn't even have that much of Toya and Imran having heart-to-hearts this week, did we? We had the morning scene today, but Toya and Fizz, I think, would have been just right.
I really wanted to see Toya and Imran having a conversation, or Toya's letting everything out, because I just really think that she's been like a punching bag for Leanne for so long, and she has come up and said certain things, but she must have so many emotions in her own mind about...
Yeah, and we
think
haven't...
about how she feels. She's, she wanted a baby. She and her sister, neither of them had a child. Or Simon, Leanne adopted Simon. Then she, then Leanne gets pregnant out of nowhere. Perhaps that gave Toya a bit of hope.
Mm.
And then she's got this nephew that she can kind of coddle. And then he gets taken away. The baby that she helped deliver when she and Eva were in the cottage together, and Toya had to help have the baby, help her give birth. That baby's been taken away from her. Every single chance she's ever had to have a baby's been taken away, and she sees her sister who had that one shot, and now that's been taken away. She must feel really bleak.
Yeah, we're just not getting the chance.
And she's like,
it's like there's not room in the script, but I really think they should have made room for it.
There could have been
it's
room.
It's not Toya's story, but...
Well, this was supposed to be the point of the story, was supposed to be what impact does this have on the street and the dynamics and relationships. And at the moment, it feels like it's just ruined Leanne's relationship with everybody.
Mm.
And that's it. I mean, it's compelling to watch.
Well, we got to see it. Today's was about everybody's reaction about it and everybody waiting for the phone call or the text message or whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's get into that. So she goes into the Rover's Toya and she knows it's over. She's very dejected, and we finish the scenes with Steve reading the last Mr. Man book to Ollie, and Leanne saying, oh, we can start the series again when you finished it, but Steve's thinking...
Yeah, and that was the other one, isn't it? That was Mr. Christmas that he was reading, or 12 Days of Mr. Man Christmas or something, which is also tugging at the heartstringy, because it's like, are you going to even make it to Christmas, Oliver?
Well, we have, on Friday, they wake up very early, Michael.
Yes, 10 to 5 they're awake in the morning. Well, I got up at 4:40 this morning, so I beat you, Leanne. It's like she's got no dedication to your son.
What did you do? What were you doing?
I had I had to get done at school this morning.
It's ridiculous. And you don't even live that... It's not like it's a commute to London or something. You could be a banker. The amount of work you do, you could be a city trader and we could be rich.
Oh.
We could have an orangery.
Well, I would love an orange. Imran has got up before Leanne, though, even, hasn't he? He's tapping away in his...
You told me off for talking about money in the bonus episode this week.
Yeah. It's all right.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I apologise. When you don't have it, you think about it. So Steve is reading more Mr. Men to Oliver, and he's scraping the bottom of the barrel because he's getting onto Roger Hargreaves' facts on Wikipedia. Yeah,
this is when he discovers that the little Miss exists. And he's like, oh, okay. Little Miss Chatterbox, we'll get Emma to read that one.
Yeah. Early in the morning in the Battersby household, and Imran's worried about today, and Toya's like, I do not know how Leanne is going to cope because she won't let Nick anywhere near her. And Imran's like, at least I've got a nice and cheerful decal on the front of my laptop, which will lift the mood.
It was like everything in court later was like grey,
serious,
brown, and Imran's laptop was like...
there was it's like the 90s kind of squiggles all over the place. And he was like looking super serious, but I could just imagine him playing, like he kept giving these like really serious looks and sort of staring at the desk, and he was probably playing Minesweeper.
I can imagine him opening up his laptop case to get it out. It's like, oh, I meant to change the faceplate on this one before I rolled it today.
No, I meant to put the black one on. So Sam sent a get well soon card to Oliver, which is really a bit tasteless. Somebody's got terminal illness,
but he doesn't know. That's what they say,
he doesn't. I know he doesn't know. He did a really good picture of a train. Listen, if I know children, because I was one, what happened was he drew an amazing picture of a train and thought this could be a good get well card.
Yeah.
That's the sort of crap I used to do.
Because
Like, everyone will admire this much more if I make it into a get well soon card.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like Ollie has shown that much interest in trains up until now. He's all about the red cars, isn't
cars.
he? Yeah.
So
Roy, though, he'd have loved that. He'd have loved that card. He'd have framed it, put it on the cafe wall.
Well, sadly, it was Hayley that was sick, not him. So Sarah comes up and she says Leanne's going to need all the support that she can get, you know.
Yeah, this is what Nick says when he dies. That Nick's like not pulling any punches now.
Nick's over it.
He's being a realist about this.
You have to be.
But it's just tragic because he knows that Leanne is still desperately clinging on to the impossible dream that Ollie is going to make a miraculous recovery.
Yeah. Socially distanced Barlow meeting on the street. They're all getting ready to find out. Emma's crying. They don't know what to do, so they just agree to hang out with each other. And luckily, there's 4 of them and there's 4 corners of the room, so they can all socially distance from one another.
Yeah, but 2 of them are going to be leaning up against the 4th wall, so you got to be careful not to just fall out the set.
Don't roll into the cameras. They're expensive. Aggie and Ed have a really interesting scene, and I thought this was a nice perspective as well.
Yeah, this episode was obviously full on Battersby McDonald stuff, but every
the
so
whole
often
episode was about
they
cut to other
inserted
people's
what are
opinions.
these characters thinking about it, and I thought this was one of Aggie and Ed's best scenes. I thought Aggie was particularly good in this. Lorna, she did a super job.
I loved this. I thought this was very important. I would love Coronation Street to bring the same energy to when they talk about teachers and the teaching profession, but apparently they don't care about that. Because Aggie...
We got Brian on our side.
Aggie tries to make Ed see that the doctor's decisions were made after a lot of considerations, and they do it every day, and it's not easy, and they're being painted as the villains, and it's not the case at all, and they would do anything for this not to be the result of the treatment for Oliver. I just thought that scene was great.
I thought it was as well. It was a go NHS sort of scene, wasn't it? Yeah. She uses the word superheroes, which is what's been bandied about this year.
They had to have that scene because I think otherwise they might have been criticised for making the NHS look unsympathetic. But the interactions they've had with the doctors and all of the steps that they've gone through, and even having this court case, it just goes to show you the advocacy for patients. The thing is, though, you have to advocate for yourself. This is the trouble.
Yeah.
You have to be the one to kick up the stink. It's not like they've never done anything wrong, the NHS, but you have to. There are ways of getting treatment and standing up for yourself, but you have to have the power to do it, and not everybody's got a Leanne in their corner.
I found it interesting. I suppose it's just come to me that Aggie hasn't been involved in this storyline,
considering that she was supposed to be a nurse in the children's.
Yeah, when Ollie first got admitted to hospital, she was there, wasn't she? She was kind of sniffing around and phoning up Ed saying, there's Ollie in here, and I wonder whether she was originally going to play a bigger part in this, because I think that might have been filmed pre-COVID, I can't remember now. And then obviously Aggie was mysteriously absent from Coronation Street up until last week. So I've got a feeling that, in the original draft, she would have
been a bit more involved.
And it's a shame because...
It would have been interesting to have a bit more conflict.
We would, and it would have been really built her character, which is barely paper thin at the moment. She's
missed out on all this character development. I wonder how much of Dr. Hospital's lines and things would have been given to Aggie.
Well, originally Dr. Hospital's lines would have all been Dr. Ward, wouldn't they? Definitely, there is no such thing as Dr. Hospital in the original version of these scripts. I think it's got to be the actress who played Dr. Ward couldn't make it.
Sarah shows up at the hospital to sit with Oliver and Toya, and Leanne is there, and she doesn't want to talk about Nick. Thanks very much. Steve's sitting outside, and he overhears a man on the phone complaining about the fact that their child is not getting treatment because Dr. Hospital is spending too much time on Oliver's case, giving evidence and etc. And he's like, oh, it's not fair. Other people are sick and they can actually get better again, and poor Steve has to listen to this, and it puts things into perspective a little bit more as well about what the finite resources of the NHS, and given what he actually knows with his mind rather than his heart about what Oliver's prospects are they being fair?
Yeah, but at this point, he's already kind of realising that...
This is just adding to his... I mean, if he'd heard this 2 weeks ago, he would have stood up and said, how dare you say that? You know, my child's got just as much right to life as your child, etc., etc. But this just kind of...
It turned out by the end of the episode that the kid was fine anyway, so don't know what he was moaning about, this other guy.
He just had, like, a splinter or something.
Yeah.
So,
yes, obviously, yes, like you said, it just puts it into perspective for Steve, and he realises that because he's been thinking for a little while now that this is fairly inevitable, but I can't stand up to Leanne, or I need to support her. Well, he's also
probably thinking, what's the harm in trying?
Yeah.
And now he's saying, yeah, there is an impact, because they can't do everything. They have to prioritise, and now they're prioritising Oliver over someone else. It'd be nice if we didn't have to do that, wouldn't it? But that's not the world we live in. There was another really nice scene between David and Gail, and they're really good at writing David and Gail scenes recently. It wasn't really anything in particular, it was just them waiting for the verdict, and them, like, him having a bitch at her about her ironing and how she still can't do it after 60 years of ironing.
Yeah, it was a classic Corrie character conversation scene, wasn't it? Where
really
nothing really happened.
Smart remarks, funny interactions, really great. It was needed in this
and because
episode.
Because the relationship between those two is so well established, it's probably one of these scenes that writes itself. And I'm not saying that, you know,
it wasn't hard to write, but
no, but whoever, I can't remember who it was that wrote it, was it Owen Lloyd Fox or something today? Like if you're given that scene to write, it's like
you just kind of imagine what they're saying and write it down as they're saying
That's
it.
the thing. With some characters, you think, oh, what would these be saying? And I thought maybe they'd be saying this, but with people like Gail and Dave, it's like, you know what they'd be saying. And you know if one person said this, you know what the other person would say. Really
great.
David basically criticises Gail for not being able to do any ironing after 60 years. And then she starts saying, well, what do you just sit on your bum all day watching telly and making sarky remarks? And he gave a great little eyebrow raise, like, yeah, I do. Which is what we do as well.
Well, he does it. Jack P. Shepherd does it in his own podcast.
Yeah.
So, Sarah's gone to offer to sit with Oliver and Toyah, as we said earlier, while everyone else goes to court. And even though Toyah wasn't very happy to see her, she sort of lets her sit there. And Toyah hasn't arrived yet, and Sarah doesn't really know what to do. So she talks to this new nurse that we haven't seen before, I don't think.
No.
And the nurse says, oh, usually, like, normally Leanne sings, or she talks or reads to him, just do whatever you like. So
we hadn't seen any of Leanne singing before, had we?
Yes, we have.
Had we?
Yes, she sang You Are My Sunshine.
Oh, yes. Oh, I remember that. That was sad.
Steve has told Leanne about the man who was complaining about Oliver taking up everybody's time, which was not a good idea. Nick shows up and she's completely frazzled and she doesn't care. They all go into the room together. It's a good job that nobody else turned up without being invited, because there were literally that number of seats. There was. It's
almost like they knew Nick was going to turn up.
There was Elliot and the other lawyer at the front two desks, and then it was Leanne and Steve, and then it was Imran and his laptop, and then it was Nick on the very end going, yes, everybody stay apart from each other.
It was a bit like when we went to Gath's funeral earlier this year, wasn't it? And the seats all far-spaced apart. Even though you're in the same bubble, you're not allowed to sit next to each other. No. So that's why Steve and Leanne were sitting 6 feet away from each other.
Courtrooms. Leanne's in the zone, the judge comes in, and then they have the weird... I didn't really know why we had this, but the judge was sort of like fading in and out of the judge talking and like talking over herself and basically going on and on and on about there's no hope, basically.
It was her reason, wasn't it? And one of the characters says later on she spoke for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job to make it seem like a lot of time was passing.
I guess that's why they did it, and we kept sort of panning around the room. And
yeah, because often in the Corrie court cases, they'll show little snippets of, testimony or what have you, and it's always the most important bits, and it makes you think that's all they needed to say, really. What gets said in the times that,
well, you would
they're
know.
not on camera.
Yeah. Lots of waffling.
Yeah, so I really honestly didn't mind this, and it started to get a bit weird when they faded into Sarah doing her singing as well. So she was kind of duetting with the judge for giving her verdict. But yeah, to get a long story short, the verdict is,
Yeah,
nothing you can do.
yeah, it's kinder to allow him to pass. Leanne cannot cope with this. She stands up immediately and she's begging, she's crying, she's wailing. The judge picks the papers up and walks out. Leanne's like, the
judge does a gavel drop and is right out of there.
They don't gavel drop, Michael. So everybody gets the text, don't they?
Yeah, the word reaches number 1, number 8, Ollie's room with Toya in.
Yeah, Toya speaks to Leanne in the corridor while Sarah sings a little sad song to Oliver because she knows that it's the end. But it's not the end, is it, for Leanne? She says, "Look, we're gonna appeal, aren't we? We're gonna appeal." And Emma's like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yes, of course I'm sure. Of course we're gonna appeal. We're not gonna just take this lying down. We've got to fight." And Elliot says, "Well, the judge did just tell you for an hour why she thought that this was the correct decision. She might refuse permission to have an appeal. And, even if we do appeal, it's not very likely we'll succeed." And Nick's like, "I have something to say." She's like, shut up. Steve's not saying anything, but we know what he's actually thinking. Steve rings Tracy up at number 1, and she is surprised when he tells them that they're going to appeal. And Amy's like, "Oh, have they got new evidence?" And Steve's like,
Not really.
See, Amy's...
You know what Leanne's like. She just won't let it drop.
Amy cuts straight to the point of it there with that question.
Yeah,
Very
which is what would be said, basically, if they went to appeal.
Yeah, so what's the evidence then?
What more have you got to say that you didn't say before?
Yeah. Gail's trying to get in hold of Nick and he's like, "I'm fed up with this. Stop talking to me. I can't talk to you now. I don't want to talk to you and I don't want to talk to David." Natasha comes over and to offer her sympathies, and Nick has to say to her, "Please ask Sam not to send any post here." He tells her about the card and she's like, "Oh dear, I'm sorry about that. I should have explained to him what the situation was a bit better." And he says to Natasha that Leanne is still in denial, and Natasha's like, "Of course she is."
I'd quite like to have seen some of Sam during this, because we've been singing his praises
I thought you said like Sam drawing this.
Oh yeah, I don't believe that he drew that train.
Show me right now. Draw it again if you can draw it. So great.
Yeah, because we've been singing his praises from the short few scenes that he's had, and said, "Wow, this is a fantastic actor that we've got here."
Else.
I'd be interested to see whether Jude, how he would cope in this kind of scene.
Well, we don't need that as well. We've got enough going on. Gail goes into the Rovers for a triple G&T. She can't. She's barely holding back the tears. This was really sad to watch. This was really, again,
Gail was just right today.
Great performance.
I thought.
Jenny as well. She says, please don't say anything nice to me, because I can't. I've just done my makeup. I'll cry. And Jenny says, "I can't." What did she say? "I can't promise anything, but except we'll get drunk."
She says, "I can't promise to save your makeup or something," or whatever. Yeah, but
she grabs
we'll
a bottle of wine
together.
Yeah, it's not drunk. It's not funny drunk Jenny. It's
this isn't
sad.
This
is sad. Drunk Jenny.
Although Monday we could certainly have hungover Jenny.
I don't.
Monday's episode starts with Jenny and Gail rolling off the sofa in the back room of the Rovers and staggering through, going, "Oh, what happened last night?"
Yeah,
it's all coming back to me.
Right, so in the hospital, there is a confrontation between Leanne and Dr. Hospital, and she says, "Leanne, I'm so sorry. I don't know if this is going to make it worse to hear, but if I could have done anything, I would have done it, but I couldn't." She's very apologetic and sensible. I do like her.
Yeah, I like her. I mean, a bit like we were saying with the Allahan story last week, you can sympathise with everybody, and that's what makes a good story a good story.
I know,
there's no ounce of villainy from the Doctor.
This is exactly why you need to flesh your villains out. Everybody is, in their story, everybody is the reasonable one.
Yeah, But
in the story of their life.
But the doctors haven't been shown to be villains.
No, they've done a really good job.
The
thing is, they're being very careful because they have to be, because you can't be seen to criticise the NHS.
Yeah.
You just can't. So Nick is in the flat with Natasha. She's trying to convince him that he's not betrayed Leanne, and he says, I wish I could be like her. I wish I believed as much as she did and carry on blindly, because if I kept the faith like she did, I would still be with her now. I'd be with both of them. He's just missing them both, and he again still thinks that he's wrecked his relationship by telling the truth. Leanne still has not come to this conclusion. She's stressed out. She goes for a coffee. Steve goes in to see Ollie, and this was sad as well. He says, remember when I told you that next year I'd make your birthday better? Well, I can't do it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to have to break that promise. I'm so sorry, son. That was just... and he's just kind of getting into the emotion of it. And this is when Leanne bursts in saying, right,
I think we need to go on the internet again.
Yeah, I've heard of this search engine called Google. I hear it's even better than Voggle. Yeah.
And I think we should have been Googling. And Steve says, just stop. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I can't. And she's like, shut up. I'm fed up with everybody saying sorry all the time. Sorry this, sorry that. Oh, it's so terrible news, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm sick and tired of platitudes. I just want people to fight for Oliver like I am. And he starts to read out this report that the judge has given them about why Oliver can't be allowed to remain in this limbo of suffering on this machine that's just basically killing him slowly. She's not listening. She's like, don't let Oliver hear it either. And Steve says, Oliver can't hear. He can't hear us. He's not breathing. He's not alive. It's a machine. You're just doing what's right for you. You're not doing what's right for Oliver. And she... all the way through this, Leanne keeps going, just get out, just get out, get out, just get out, get out, just get out. And I thought this was like quite a good script, because when you are upset like Leanne is, you do get repetitive, and once you get hit a certain limit,
fixed on it.
Once you hit a certain limit for somebody telling you something over and over again, you just want them to shut up. And she was just like, get out, just get out. And this was always her reaction to everything all the way through this storyline. Somebody says something I don't like, get out. She has the power to tell everyone to get out, but now she's up against Steve, who is an equal partner in this situation. He's the father, she's the mother. She can't get him to leave. She can't order him out. She can't get him to shut up because he's telling the truth, and she deep down probably knows this. And he says, I can't support the appeal. And she immediately she starts saying, well, you don't love him the same as I do. No, she says, I hate you for this. I hate you. Don't do this. You don't love him as much as I do. So it's kind of getting a bit almost petty, because she thinks, well... She's been petty the whole time, because this is like, she doesn't have very many weapons in her arsenal. And being petty and taking the low blow, that's an avenue that's open to her, because she's the main victim of this story, because Oliver's not awake. Oliver's not conscious. So she's the victim. So she can punch up. Nobody can punch down to her. You know what I'm saying? So she's saying she can use the low blows, because she's got this excuse of this grief that she's carrying and this burden that she feels that she's the only one that's taken on the burden of protecting Oliver. And she says, don't give up on him. And he says, he's not here. He's gone. He went ages ago. Why would the doctors even lie? Why would they lie? And I do love him, but I'm not going to support the appeal. And he leaves. And the nurse, she starts weeping, just because I guess now she's wondering, can I do it by myself? Is he going to oppose me? Is it now going to be me and him against each other before I can appeal? And will it be too late? I don't know. She's crying. The nurse comes in again, and she just says, leave me alone. Then we see Steve sitting outside the hospital on the bench. He sees the man from earlier. And he's like, how's your kid? And the man says, oh, she's gonna be okay. Aren't they brilliant here? And Steve's like, yeah, they are. Yeah, it's like him saying that they are actually. So, and it is also they have done all they can. And it's also like life goes on. That's the sad part, though, isn't it? Leanne ends the episode, and it's like Groundhog's Day, because she's reading Mr. Tickle again. Back to number 1. So it's like we've gone all the way back and she's still stuck in this. She's stuck in a labyrinth in her own mind of not being able to accept it. It's like a mental prison that she's built for herself, and she's torturing herself with this idea that she's the only person who cares, and she can save him, but she knows she can't.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, probably there'd have been a good chunk of viewers seeing this and going, "Oh God, why, Leanne? Why can't you see?
How can she be back here again?"
But and before tonight's episode started, I was thinking, you know, I think I want tonight's episode to be the one where he dies, or it was obvious the way that the appeal was, so the case was going to go. So would they have switched him off at the end of tonight's one? I was thinking maybe now was the time, but seeing the way they did it, it felt to me like, no, I don't think Leanne would have given up this easy. I don't know what's going to make Leanne see that it's the right thing to do, because she's got to. Yeah. It will happen, but...
You said, we had this discussion about how will she come to the realisation, because this story has to end with Leanne accepting the truth, otherwise this is going to be even more heartbreaking. This story has to end with some kind of closure for us as the viewers to see that Leanne could at least accept the death of her son. So she's going to have to come to this realisation, and you were adamant that it would be Steve that would make her see, but now Steve has seen the light, and he's tried to convince her, and she still won't have it. So
well, if Steve can't convince her,
it's got to come from her.
Yeah,
it has to, just for the emotional impact of the story. She has always felt like she was alone, and she has to. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what they're going to pull out of the bag to make her, Leanne have this epiphany.
Because she's kind of on her own, isn't she? She has pushed a lot of people away, like Gail and Nick and Steve now, but there still are people who will come and sit with her.
Yeah, this new nurse that we saw might be integral in some manner, because she appeared for the first time this week, and she seems very sympathetic, and she said to Leanne, you know, she's spoken, she's been in scenes like 3 times. The first time she was like telling Sarah what to do, then she came in when Leanne was crying to see if she was all right, and then there was another scene where she was doing a handover to another nurse that was going to look after her, and she said Leanne's all by herself now, and that was kind of, you know, symbolic as well.
The character wasn't particularly needed unless she's going to have something
I
to
hope
do,
that she's going to do something. I don't know,
but you're right, I think
somebody's going to say something to Leanne, and she's going to realise.
I mean, it could have been that she'd seen this guy outside, and
I know, but it didn't happen like that, did it?
No.
It's not gonna. She's never gonna hear somebody else going, "Oh well, my daughter, my son, blah blah blah," and go, "Yeah, well, I'll sacrifice my child." That's how she would see it in her head. She's not going to sacrifice anyone for Oliver.
No.
And she shouldn't ever be in a position to have to make that choice anyway. That's not a parent. You know, a parent should be asked to do that ever.
So I don't really know what's going to happen next. I don't think that the appeal is going to happen.
No, I
hope it doesn't, because that would feel like dragging it out a little bit. It needs to happen quickly. I would hope that next week maybe she might have the realisation. But I can't
it's just very
put
bleak,
it together in my head how it's going to...
Only this feels like such a bad idea to have done this storyline during a pandemic near Christmas, where everyone's in lockdown, we're all miserable, it's dark and raining outside, and we're like cuddled on the sofa watching a woman scream for her child to not be killed by the NHS, and you think, I hope we'll get put out of a mystery soon.
Maybe she's just going to be reading through those Mr. Men books, and she gets to Mr. Face the Facts, and then that's what makes her realise.
I hope that the next book isn't Mr. Fake News, because she might start to reevaluate. This is just desperately sad. This has made me want to cry several times reading this out.
It is very, very sad. I can still watch it with with my right sense of humour about it all, but and there wasn't anything tonight that's got me feeling the same way as, when I get very, very rarely when something gets me shaky and quivery and overly emotional and anything, like with Hayley on her deathbed. There was nothing like that, but I was watching it throughout a lot of it just very, very much in awe of Jane's performance.
Yeah.
And
amazing again.
And just, yeah.
But the
And
relentless
thinking,
misery.
what would you do in this position?
I can't take another year of Coronation Street throwing the relentless misery of a medical diagnosis.
Because it's literally 12 months after Sinead, isn't it?
We can't have this again.
No.
I can't cope.
I mean, it just seemed to me that they maybe, and this is just a bit conjecture, that they saw how well the Sinead storyline did, how it got people talking, how it got the ratings up.
I mean, you can't deny that it grips people.
The cynic in you would say, so they thought they'd do it again, and how can we top this?
Yeah.
How can we top some young bride
I'm not saying they
dying of cancer?
I guess I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have done this story, because obviously I think this is really powerful, and it's explored a lot more different avenues of storylines than I thought it would do initially. They've done a really good job of using it as a lens to explore relationships between different characters and what would you do, that's what soaps are really good at, bringing causes to life, helping you to see perspectives. You get to see a lot more. I don't know how much of this is really realistic to what it's like, but you get to see sort of how the NHS works, what happens if you don't agree with the doctors, who's on your side.
It feels to me like it's that they have heard case studies and spoken to people.
But to me, this feels like the definitive terminal illness storyline. This feels like we can close the book on it now and put it on the shelf and not open it again. Do you see what I'm saying? They've done this so well, and you would have thought there was no more room for them to get anything new out of a storyline to do with a terminal diagnosis after last year. But they've managed to...
Yeah, look at it in a different way.
Again, I don't want to... It's too traumatic. I can't take it.
It's interesting how when...
And I can't imagine how you would feel if you were a parent watching this. Especially if you're a parent who's been through this.
Different parents will feel different things. Like with all these kind of stories, some people think this is quite cathartic, seeing somebody else going through it. And yes, they get how I felt. And other people saying, no, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
But no, I found it quite interesting how when they had to stop filming for COVID and get rid of all the kids on set, people were saying, how can they do this Ollie storyline now without Ollie in it? And actually, I think that... I mean, I know he's been comatose on the bed the whole story, but if they had more of a focus on Ollie, and maybe if he'd stayed conscious for longer, I don't think it would have been as good. I think that pointing the lens squarely at the adults and everyone who was affected by it, and almost making Ollie the very minor character in his own story, it's only helped.
I have heard people criticise it for that reason and say that it would be powerful if we got to see it from his point of view, and I can certainly see that, but it didn't feel like it was supposed to be about that.
No, I'm still sort of noticing that they're hiding Oliver behind various bits of hospital equipment, which is a shame, but...
they're putting him in it a lot more.
They are a lot more now, you're right.
They must have brought him back in.
I'm really wondering, because it's odd, because there are some... They said at the time, we've got stock footage of him in bed, and I'm wondering how much they're reusing, how much is that, but it feels like he's been in for a bit, and maybe he hasn't, which means they're doing a good job, because there's been some scenes of like the back of, say, Steve's head with Ollie in the foreground, haven't there? There have been a couple of scenes
where somebody patted him on the head.
Yeah, exactly. Is that a new scene, or is that where they got Ollie's mum in, like they had with Tiana when they had Tiana's mum in to stroke their head, to hold her, to get her to stroke their head? I think it's been as best as they can. It's been fine, and I continue to say that for the whole of the coronavirus. Social distance filming, apart from the odd, and it really is the odd scene where it looks like they're all spaced far apart, like when on the street today when Simon and Tracy and Amy was walking down the street like some kind of 90s boy band.
It felt like a showdown at the sheriff's office or something.
And also the underworld party at Speed Dial. But really, those kind of scenes to me are few and far between, and I am not noticing. I'm starting to forget
that it's going on, and I also have seen people criticise Coronation Street for various things that have happened because of lockdown. They wouldn't be able to happen and stuff, and we've got to get over it now. I can't be sitting there going, oh, they wouldn't be allowed to have an office party in Speed Dial because of COVID restrictions. It's like, no. we can't expect them to be 100% on everything that happens. When stuff happens, you know, we get like 48 hours notice for some things that are going to change. You can't criticise Corrie for not keeping up to date with it, because they never really were full up on it to start with.
Yeah,
it feels like a sketch of what coronavirus is in this country, rather than a really fleshed out, you know, oil painting of the situation. And I'd rather have it like that, to be honest. I'd rather they not worry too much.
Yeah, I think they've got the balance just right, honestly. Yeah. I think they have. It seems like we've covered most of the storyline as it's gone. I did want to give a bit of a shout out to Elliot, who I don't think we'd seen before this week, had we? I can't remember. If we had, it was only a little bit, but I think that the casting of him was just right, because sometimes on Coronation Street they have the what should be serious characters, but they get played in the campy ways, like the reporters or the lawyers or what have you, and they go over the top a little bit with it. And
thought Elliot was...
I thought that Elliot was just right. I think he was just the right level of seriousness. There wasn't an ounce of comedy in his performance, and
why would there be?
Just not because, like I said, often on Coronation Street,
I can't remember an example of this happening. I'll take your word for it.
I can't think of very many characters that are supposed to be serious that
was
come
it that
across
time?
as just serious.
Was it that time that Sinead's doctor turned out to be Patch Adams?
No. I thought it was just right. I like that.
Good job,
I also
Elliot.
liked the court set.
Yes, hooray, we've got a court set. Where is it?
Which has been teased. Yeah, where is it? Somebody tell us, where is the court set? Because it's not huge.
It's about time they had a court set.
And it's not grand.
No,
but
it looks very boring and plain, doesn't it? And very modern.
Yeah.
I like my courts to be in an old musty building with really dark wood panelling and like a massive podium with a judge wearing a white powdered wig.
Yeah, so when they've had court
that's
scenes...
the only sort of... Well, actually, no, that's not right.
When they've had court scenes on Coronation Street before, they've had to go outside of the ITV set to be able to film it. And I think they said at the time that one of the reasons they had to push back Yasmin's court set is because literally they didn't have anywhere within Media City to film it. So over the past 6 months, they have made this.
It does make me wonder whether they always had the plan to do this, or if they thought we can't... Maybe they've got rid of something else.
Yeah, but quite possibly.
They haven't got rid of the hotel set, though, and they haven't got rid of the hospital set, so I don't know whether this is permanent. It really should be. I mean, I would buy this as being the court set every single time they have a court case from now on.
Yes, but I don't want Corrie to come out of this pandemic thinking we never have to do any location shooting
I agree
again.
with you.
We can think of ways around it. It's cheaper if we don't do location shoots, because
I know.
it is starting to get a little bit...
But listen, wouldn't it be nice if we could have location shoots, but they weren't for the same old things all the time? Like, we have to go and do a court case. We have to go to a hotel. It's nice they've got these generic, used almost more than annually sets in-house, and then they can do something slightly more interesting when they go location.
If they would use it for that'd be great. But
I want to see more on the street stuff. I want to see them going to town. I want to see them walking around the shops. That's what I like.
I'd love that, but I suppose the practicalities.
No, of course you couldn't do it now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is,
you could do it now because the shops are all shut at the moment.
Listen,
Manchester's a ghost town, probably.
What I'm saying is, if you've got a choice between filming a location shot in a boring generic court or making a boring generic court in your as a set, and then going location shooting somewhere completely different, like a haunted house where Shona gets shot, like we had before, stabbed. Let's do it that way.
Yeah, I guess. I just think that court-wise, it'd be a shame if there wasn't, the big steps down.
But I don't know whether... Yeah, they probably...
The judge on high.
It is interesting to consider, where this is and what they're doing, and is it going to be... Can they flip it to something else? Is this a nice big room they can use for anything?
It feels like it can be quickly removed and put up, because it was basically a load of tables and a desk.
I mean, I've only ever been in a court thingy twice. Once when I was doing my court reporting for a murder case, and once when it was a family court And the family court was basically like big at school, and there were just tables in a big circle.
It just feels
and
that...
it was like in an anonymous office building. So if this was a very nice happy medium between those two, I think it's a bit more realistic.
I just feel like if Yasmin's trial is also in this set, which it feels like, why wouldn't it be? If they've got it,
it feels like a bit of an anticlimactic thing. But
you need to have the gravitas of a real big wood panelled court.
I do like nice wood panelling.
And then, the different heights and everything.
And we need a gavel. We don't care if they're real or not.
So, anyway, well, I guess we'll see in a few weeks, because that feels like it's coming up very quickly, that particular trial.
It feels like this really is doing a great job. This story is doing a great job of what it set out to do. If it set out to throw the cat among the pigeons, make a bunch of people shake up a bunch of relationships, have everybody get to have a little sad scene where they talk about their feelings, get Jane Danson some award nominations, because she really deserves it.
She and Shelley are gonna be competing, I think.
Get everybody crying, get some good coverage for a charity, hopefully get them some really nice big donations off the back of this. It's a really, really powerful story. They've done a really good job of it. And the other thing is, it still feels like there's stuff that hasn't been said or done. And that's what you want to leave a story. You kind of want to leave a story with avenues unexplored, because that means that you haven't, just gone over and over and over the same ground over and over again in a really boring and dull way.
Yeah.
Like, we said loads of different things about where they could have gone with this, and they haven't. And I think that makes it... That means that they've done a good job.
Speaking of the future, do you think that Nick and Leanne will come through this? Will they be back together again?
Nick doesn't seem to think so, does he? I don't know if he's just being dramatic.
It feels like if she's going to see the light, or for lack of a better word, and agree for them to let Ollie die peacefully, she might realise that she's been a massive cowbag to many of the people who are just trying to support her in this, and maybe she will get with him. There's still going to be the awkwardness of Sam being around, but maybe she will...
I really, really want them I actually do want them to get back together now. I think I'd love to see Leanne just accept a big hug from Nick.
I like them
and
together.
Cry into his arms. I know you can't have that. Maybe this is why they're breaking them up. That was another funny bit today when Sarah came over to Nick's house and she was talking to him, and she said, "Do you want a hug?" And he's like, "No, get out of here. What do you mean, you weirdo? Why would we start hugging now when there are COVID restrictions?"
I do wonder when they're going to be able to start doing that again. Like when they stopped it, and Corrie came back in the summer, and it's like we're not allowed to have anyone hugging, and it's like, okay, I can put up with that for a while, no hugging, no fights and everything, but it's like,
but why?
But when will they be able to do that again?
It really feels like, I do want Nick and Leanne. I don't normally care about that group of characters and who they, like Nick, Leanne, Peter, Carla, I don't care. But I do actually, like, Nick is so invested in this relationship, and he's so sad about... He's more sad about losing Leanne than losing Oliver, and I can understand that, but bloody hell, don't tell Leanne that. I just kind of want them to get back together, and I've never really felt that strongly about them at all.
I feel like they belong together, but then I would say that about Steve and Tracy as well, and I know for both of those, there are people that feel completely different about it, and get them split up. They're bad for each other.
No, they're wrong.
I think that she needs him as a shoulder to cry on. I think it'd be quite sweet if they reunite. I'd be all for that.
The good thing is that the government has secured several million COVID vaccination doses.
That's in the news
and
this
I
week.
have seen the list of priorities, and it sort of goes from 1 to 11.
You told me, I'm like round down the bottom.
Right, 1 to 11. So number 1 is like care home workers and residents, so they get it, and then it's like everyone over 85, everyone over 75, everyone over 65, everyone over 55.
So is it literally just by age?
Yeah, it's literally
it's
by age.
Not the soap actors get it second.
But it should be soap actors. It should be like, right, the Queen, Philip, Charles, William.
Well, they get caught in the age-related categories
anyway.
Yeah,
they get it first. just to ensure the continuity of the throne, which is obviously the main thing that this country is working towards.
Speaking of which, new series The Crown starts on Sunday. Ooh, exciting.
Meghan and Harry, I'm sorry, you're going to have to get yours from America.
Then
we've got... Then it should be soap actors and Good Morning television presenters.
Yeah.
Then probably podcasters from around, to say. And like... I'm surprised it's not being done by profession.
I don't know why teachers aren't up there.
Teachers have less
I'm
protection.
risking my life every day.
You have less protection than every single other profession because you're not allowed to wear masks, and the
I
kids
am
don't.
allowed to wear masks.
You are now, but you weren't before.
No, it was advised not to. It's like you could, but you probably shouldn't be. Was the general feeling? Yeah.
It's like wearing a crash helmet, driving your car.
Although it's different in secondary schools where they do all have to wear masks.
I know, but it's silly because like NHS workers and shop workers and stuff, they're all allowed to wear masks and gloves and sanitise everything. Anyway,
you're right. Maybe with the end in sight,
maybe should definitely be at the top to get, and maybe we should prioritise it by storyline.
Yeah.
If the government hasn't thought this through at all. We're like number 11, like under 55s, I think.
Yeah. Do they go by the results of the Coropedia Ultimate Character Survey? Look at the list of the ranking of characters. So it's like, right, David Nielsen gets it. Who else? Maureen Letman's got it.
Yeah, come in, Maureen. You get what she got, a Damon and a COVID
Helen
injection.
Worth, Sally Denver gets it, and sorry, some of the ones that were towards the bottom of the list, but the viewers have spoken.
Sorry,
and I think it'd be a really nice gesture for the arts if the government did
seeing
that.
as how the government screwed them over for the rest of the year, allowing them all to, get the people back in the theatres.
Yeah,
give them all a nice injection. And that's what we've got to say about coronavirus.
Should we move on to the next story?
I think we should shut up because we don't know what we're talking about. But definitely the Queen should get it first.
Okay, fine, the Queen can have it. So, next story. I'm going to do the rest of the storylines because they're so short and fairly insignificant to the rest of the week. I think and Gemma's done such a good job of telling us what happened in the Leanne storyline. Sorry, Ollie. Leanne's got centre stage now. I guess I'll take over here. That's my noise to describe the other stories this week.
Don't take too long about it because we've already done a really long.
Right, Todd, Paul, Billy. Eileen is getting Todd to do the Hoover on Monday, or else he's going to have to just get off his ass and get a job. So he's like, what's worse, hoovering number 11 or going to get some work? I know, it's really easy to get a job on this street. I just saw the Winters do it a few weeks ago. Sarah, can I have a job, please? Yes, you can, says Sarah. So now Todd is joining the growing population of the street that are working behind the scenes at Underworld.
I don't think that they're actually an underwear factory anymore. I think they're starting a large private army.
Maybe you're right. Paul is not happy that Todd is working at the factory, however, because of, well, he doesn't like Todd hanging around because of the whole Billy thing. So I'm still definitely enjoying Todd much more, like huge amount more than I was at the beginning. And so some of the looks that he's giving, he's got the confidence, he's got the cockiness. And there was a little bit in this scene where he's there just sitting back in his seat in the office, and he gives Paul a little wink through the window. I thought it was just right. So also in this story, we've got the whole bishop thing, and Billy tells Nina in the cafe that the bishop is coming over later and he may have a new job at the end of the day. Nina doesn't seem to think it's hopeful. She thinks that the bishop's coming over to break it to him face to face. So nice niece one, Nina, who's a bit of a downer
niece
there. Niece one, Nina. And I was getting a little excited when I heard that the bishop was coming around, because I hoped that it would be John the bishop, who was the one in charge from before. But there is a new bishop in town, and it is Bishop Greg. Back to the Underworld stuff. They have an impromptu work gathering, outing,
team building
exercise at Speed Dial. So Jeff and Alia have agreed to close down the whole of Speed Dial for a couple of hours, just so 6 people could have a film quiz in there. Not so good for finances when I think that they're already struggling.
No, because they can't actually open as a restaurant unless there on Coronation Street, so actually they're doing better than most of the restaurants in Manchester.
True. Okay, so they're all split up into teams. Kirk's doing this film quote quiz. Todd seems to know all the answers. Yeah. At the end of the day, Todd and Alina win the quiz, and the fun bonding session of 5 employees plus Adam is over because Adam's there, isn't he? Just for bleeps and giggles. Paul is a little bit squiffy and heads home. This is where Greg the Bishop shows up, and it's like, you know what's going to happen. Greg's going to turn up, Paul's going to disgrace himself, Billy's going to wonder whether he's got the job. Yes, that is exactly what happens. But it's good news. He is given the job. He's often the archdeacon's post, and then Greg goes to the loo.
That was his first mistake. No, his first mistake was offering him the job.
Maybe Greg was just really nervous about giving the job to, or offering the job to Billy.
It's like, I think Jesus, I can hear him. He's going, no, why? What are you doing?
Yes, he's a bag of nerves.
It's my birthday. All I want for my birthday is to not have him anywhere near the church.
Billy, what are you doing? He's useless at him.
Send him to the colonies to convert the natives. Send him to America.
Anyway, this is when drunk Paul turns up, starts stripping in the lounge for whatever reason. Then Billy's going, don't do it. There's the bishop in the toilet or something. The bishop in the bathroom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then Paul's calling out for him.
Going, oh yeah, bishop in the bathroom. Is that what you're calling it now?
This is the wrong side of silly for me, I have to say. But then Greg comes out and it's all a little bit awkward. And Billy's like saying, Paul, get to bed. And Paul goes, he's sex mad him. And Greg is finding it all a little bit awkward and leaves and says he's going to call Billy tomorrow.
I just don't know whether you would be okay with even offering a post to somebody who was living in, as they inverted commas, living in sin.
I know.
Like, I don't care.
All of a sudden...
I personally don't care.
All of a sudden, Weatherfield or church has become incredibly accepting.
I just don't
know
how many unmarried vicars living with partners there are in the Church of England.
That are men.
That are being promoted to be archdeacons.
That have taken drugs in the church just a couple of years ago.
I would love it if the church was accepting in this manner, but I don't think
they all are. But you never know. You've got to start somewhere.
On an individual level, many of them are, but as an institution, not famously accepting, are they?
They'll be making women archdeacon next, Gemma.
No way. What, like the actual archdeacon of Manchester is?
Shut up. Anyway. That's kind of it, isn't it? Oh no, there's a little bit more of Todd and Adam in the speed dial later. Where what?
They were right when they said it's a slippery slope letting women in. Because now look where we are.
Todd says sorry to Adam for abandoning him because do you remember when before he disappeared they were setting up a promising lawyering firm together?
Oh yeah, and now he's gone off.
Yeah, Todd should be apologising to Imran for coming back and maybe getting him out of a job.
Imran should be saying thank you to Todd for buggering off.
Yeah.
Give him a job.
Anyway, Adam says it's fine, and also it's calmed down with Billy and Paul later, hooray. So next morning, Paul seems a bit more hungover than he should have been. I didn't think he was that drunk on Monday night.
I think he was pretty drunk.
That he didn't know, he couldn't remember what happened, but then having never been blind drunk myself, I've never experienced... not knowing what happened the night before and how much it would take you to get there.
I've never ever got so drunk I don't remember what happened apart from once.
When was that? We need to know the story.
No, but
forget about this Coronation Street. The nation needs to know. The world needs to know.
This is such an embarrassing story. It was like years ago. I think it was like New Year's Eve or so. It was some kind of party or something, and it was around the twins' dad's house because our friends used to live around the corner from us. The both of them lived there, and then, well, it's a long story, but basically 3 of my best friends live around the corner from us, and so we could go round there and it'd be fine. Everyone could get home without worrying. Anyway, that's not even part of the story. I just remember coming home very merry, and I went to bed. But
where was I at
You were there as well. But in the morning, I woke up and my pants were in the toilet.
Oh yes, I remember that. You had your knickers in the toilet.
I don't know why. I still don't know why or how they got there. I don't remember taking them off. I don't know why I put them in the toilet. I must have just gone, this'll do. I'll throw that in the toilet. I don't want that anymore. I don't know what happened.
Yes.
I don't know what. That's the only time I ever... And that was about probably 7 years ago.
That was only knickers in the toilet. You probably would have noticed
if I'd come home in the middle of you having a job interview with like, what would it be? The head of...
Michael Gove when he was head of education.
If Michael Gove was there, I'd shove him down the toilet and flush it.
Anyway, back to Coronation Street. This is much...
That was a bit of a sidetrack.
That's fine, much more interesting. Anyway, Paul needs to be have it explained to him what he got up to in front of Greg the Bishop yesterday, and it's all a bit awkward. And then the conversation turns to Todd, and Paul says, "Look, I know I got a bit drunk because of Todd being there. I'm not happy. I'm a bit uncomfortable. I'm a bit nervous with him. You know, maybe muscling his way back in again. But he promises, no, I can handle him. I know we're solid, Billy," which is soap talk for
we're on the rocks.
Yeah, Todd's going to be bedding one of us at some point in the near future, or if not trying to. Yeah, if not both, exactly.
I can see this being a very happy. What's it called when you have
ménage à trois?
No, like a polyamorous.
Oh yeah.
Relationship. How's the church with that?
Fine. Anything goes in Weatherfield.
Just
clergy.
Do what you like. We're fed up with even trying to keep tabs on you people.
Yeah, with Emily Bishop having abandoning them. She
gone.
was the one. She was the one that was stopping it.
Backbone of Weatherfield, and she's left. So we're not even trying to keep up appearances anymore. There haven't been a fresh flower in that church for 10 years.
I feel sorry for the Friends of Weatherfield Hospital. I wonder how they're coping without all her generous charity work.
You can see how they're coping. Not at all. That's why Dr. Hospital's running around doing everything by herself.
There's only one hospital room in action.
Yeah.
Everybody always gets the same bed. If there's more than 2 people sick in Weatherfield,
we have to pick which one's the most popular and kill.
You're going to Leeds.
Yeah.
This is where Billy does his classic Corrie fake out when he gets a phone call from the bishop, and
this was odd.
Yeah, it was odd because the way he was reacting definitely made it seem like he hadn't got the job. And when he hung up the phone, you said, what was it you said? Like the bishop must have wondered, does he actually want the job? Because he seems disappointed by it.
Well, he was like, oh, okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, brilliant. And on the other end of the phone, the archdeacon's there, or the bishop's there, going, Billy, I know it's really embarrassing. And Billy's like, yeah, I know. He's like, yeah, well, don't worry about it. We understand these things happen. We've got very many gay vicars around the country with live-in boyfriends who get drunk on a Monday, Wednesday. Don't worry about it. And Billy's like going, yeah, okay, I understand. He's going, no, you've still got the job. I still want to offer it to you. And Billy goes, okay, I'll talk later. And then the bishop's going, I'm really confused.
Screw you, I've just offered you a job when I really shouldn't have done. I extended
an olive branch here to you, and you are probably the worst candidate we've ever had. I mean, back in medieval times, they were all shagging the nuns, so that was a bit different. At least we can trust you not to do that.
I really want to know what the competition was in this.
I can't even begin to imagine. Somebody who's still on drugs. Somebody who's going, I promise I'll give it up. I'll give up the smack if you make me archdeacon, I promise.
Oh, he's on the incense, isn't he? You can imagine him there.
A big lung full of it.
Anyway, he says to, who was it? He's with Paul, isn't he? He's like, yeah, I haven't got a job. Not really. I'm the new archdeacon of Weatherfield. Of course I am.
Just in time
Billy.
for Christmas.
Yeah, he's going to be Bishop Billy next, and then Archbishop Billy, and then he's going to be King Billy, head of the Church of England. That's going to be the 70th story.
Archbishop of Canterbury is the main job, isn't it?
Yes, that is the main job. Yes.
Of C of E, apart from the Queen.
Yes. So Paul
He should have married Charles if he wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
That's the only way in.
Paul turns up for work. Sarah says, look, don't need any more aggro. Thank you very much between you and Todd. And he says, okay. Todd sees Paul and they check they're fine. But when Todd invites him for a hot pot later, he's turned down. Paul says, I don't need you.
I don't need you in your hot pot.
So
I can go down Carp and get one.
So Todd goes round the Rovers later and finds Billy and Paul having a bit of a chin wag and says, can I see Summer, please? And Billy says, look, I don't trust you. You swanned off without a binaural leave a couple of years ago, and I do not want to be telling Summer and getting her hopes up about you being back until she herself is back from Geraldine's house in the near future. I don't know when this is supposed to be happening, so no. And Todd says, well, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. And that was that
Okay.
story. That was that silly story.
I'm sad that they replaced John the Bishop with Greg the Bishop.
They replaced John the Bishop with Greg the Bishop, old Summer with new Summer, old Todd with new Todd.
Yeah. Do you think they got rid of John the Bishop because he allowed Billy's shenanigans?
Maybe.
And this new one
Yeah,
is like...
rather than just casting him aside, he took him to rehab. Took him to vicar rehab.
You've allowed this bishop... I mean, this... the amount of vicars been flung off the side of a cliff since you've been bishop, John, is too high.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's the archdeacon. I don't know what an archdeacon is. I don't know what difference it's going to make.
Bishop helper. It's silly because maybe
He doesn't do any vicaring
maybe
anyway.
it's literally just an excuse or a reason why we'd never see him at church, because everyone's always said we never see Billy doing any actual vicaring. We barely ever see him doing any services. Now he's got a perfect excuse never to do any services, but they'll probably still, wheel him out next time somebody wants to have a church wedding, which isn't very much because obviously the bistro is the place to do it these days.
But imagine being married by the archdeacon. That's super duper, isn't it?
It just seems like too important a position for somebody in Coronation Street to have. I suppose they've had mayors in the past, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a professional footballer living at number 3.
Yeah.
Now they've got an archdeacon.
What happened to its gritty working class roots?
I know.
These days it's full of
seriously.
professional footballers, archdeacons,
and business owners.
factory owners, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and everyone who isn't an archdeacon or a professional footballer works at the factory now.
Yes. Including Todd, what do you think about Todd in the factory? I think he could be quite good, but I mean, I'm still
surely
not
he's going to wipe the floor with everybody else as far as being a salesman goes, because, I mean, they're not.
He has got
as
the
a
gift of the
profession,
gab.
They're not known for anything other than forcing you to buy something you don't want.
Has Todd done any sales before? I can see that the job would suit him.
No.
But equally, I could see that he might not.
Well,
Would he lower himself to sales if
Yeah,
he thinks
if he
he's
gets
such a
a good
high-flying
commission.
lawyer?
if he gets a good commission,
But why in the knicker factory? I would have thought he'd be like... He should be like a car salesman or
Michael,
something.
I think you've forgotten the fact that the only reason he's got this job is because he didn't want to do the hoovering. It's not exactly had high ambitions.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I think he fits okay.
It's really just a big mystery.
I'm enjoying seeing him
What
with
they do
Sarah, because obviously
him
they've got a
and
history
Sarah
together.
And Paul.
Paul, I'm not particularly interested in Paul, Billy, Todd romance. It's something going to happen, I guess. I'm just feeling a bit meh about it. Come on, get it over with, really. But yeah, I think before long... Who's it going to be? If you could put your money on, is it going to be Todd and Billy, or are Todd and Paul going to discover that storeroom together? The way that...
Todd and Paul or Todd and Billy?
The way that there's this antagonism between Todd and Paul.
This is what I'm
Which is,
thinking.
classic
It's like,
soap.
yeah.
This is how romance starts. Makes
Yeah.
me think it's probably going to be
So-
those two.
Soap operas are like playgrounds.
Is Billy
If
gonna...
you tease the girl you actually
Yeah,
fancy
is
her.
Billy going to be so caught up in his archdeaconing that Paul feels
Left
shunned?
out. It probably will be that. It'll probably be loads of like, oh, I've got to go and meet up with the mayor about blessing the font at the new leisure centre.
If we do not know what archdeacons do, it's something like that.
We're running out of holy
This is
water.
going to be a learning journey for us, isn't it? We don't know what archdeacons do. We're
Because
gonna
of
be
Brexit, there's no more holy water coming in from Europe. What are we going to do? We need to source some. Where should we get it from?
Yeah, Billy and his powers. Yeah, so is what I say to that. But I just I'm feeling completely uninspired by it.
I'm not inspired by the idea of doing team building in an Indian restaurant.
That was silly, and it was over too quickly.
And it was a stand-up buffet. That was kind of funny. Right, come on, next story.
Okay, fine. So the Alina Highland Fling, which for a little while I had mixed up with this because, well, everything else is basically
A big
could be
mishmash.
one story together, but the Adam and Alina side of thing, which I don't know what I'm feeling less excited by, really. The thought of a love triangle with Billy, Paul and Todd, or a new romance between Adam and Alina. But basically, they start giving each other the glad eye during this underworld do on Monday. And she's being all coy and hard to get about being walked home at the end of the evening. Wednesday, Beth says, "Oh, you, Alina, you don't get away from Adam. He's no good for you. He's bad news, that guy. Stay away from him. But Alina seems quite chuffed to hear that he might be into her. And then Sarah is obviously feeling a little bit narked by the idea that her husband is moving on from her. And she has a go at him outside the factory when he keeps Beth and Alina talking about some rat that they've just seen.
Yeah, what was that about?
He's like a big mouse, says Alina.
Yeah, she sounds like that. No, it's more like, it was a big mouse.
It's a big mouse.
Big mouse.
God, this is so dull.
I do love Alina's voice.
Really dull. Carla says to Alina as well, you probably shouldn't be going after Adam. Carla says to Sarah, stop letting Adam affect your work. And she says, I won't. Adam sees Alina in the street and she says that she was interested in him, but it all seems too complicated now. So for the moment, we're putting this on hold because we're not allowed to be in Friday's episode. But Monday, I'm sure it's going to be back on again. And at the end of the episode, Adam and Carla are at loggerheads because he says, you got no business poking your nose into my romances. Keep your beak out, Carla. And she says, look, you and Sarah are going through this messy divorce or whatever at the moment. Keep everyone else out of it. Sort it out yourself. I don't want this factory being dragged down because of all your splitty-uppy shenanigans. And that's that, basically. So, yeah. Adam and Alina, Gemma, next hot new couple. Well, any excitement there for you?
You can't expect me to be excited about Adam and Alina being the next hot couple when I was supposed to be excited about Adam and Sarah being the next hot couple not that long ago.
5 minutes ago. Yeah, Adam and Alina are probably married by Christmas, aren't they? You know, the rate that they're moving at the moment. Could they be good together? Maybe.
I don't think so.
But it just smacks a little bit of, we need to give Alina something to do because she's been in it a year and a half now and she's not really got up to much apart from having a bit of a romance with Seb, which was actually quite sweet. And then they sucked all the fun out of it.
Didn't it?
I just much preferred Alina how she was when she came in, and I don't mean, you know, under the thumb of some evil slave owner. She just seemed a lot more kind of innocent and sympathetic and nice, and now her minxy side is coming through, and it's I
know they don't want to get political, but I also can't believe they've got another European character who's in the show during one of the most tumultuous times of change between the EU and Britain that there has been for, you know, decades since the war. And she's not commenting. Nobody's asking her. She hasn't offered her opinion. I understand if they don't want to get into Brexit, but they really have begged the question of what is going on with Alina and what does she think of it by having her in the show. You don't need to have a European immigrant in the show, but you've put one in there, and now you're not talking about Brexit.
Yeah, and the fact that they have successfully incorporated COVID light into the show.
And I mean, even COVID is stupidly political in some circles. That we haven't had any of that. They're trying not to be controversial.
Yeah, that would have been a much more interesting route for Alina's journey to go down, and not just throwing it around her. Although it
doesn't want to take any risks.
It seems to me, really, whenever a lot of the time when they put couples together, especially hot young couples, you just can't feel invested in them because you know it's going to be over in 5 minutes, or it's just up there for the magazine covers or the sexy steaminess of it. And we're not even going to get any of that now because of because of the social distancing. Yes. But really, it seems like it's only happening so that Sarah can get niggled and ends up going out with Gary, in time for the 60th.
He's going out. He's married to Maria.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't matter.
I know.
It feels like it's going to be... Yeah, she's going to be pushed into the arms of Gary round about the anniversary time, which also is uninspiring for me because I don't really care about Gary and Maria, because what have we seen of them since they've got married? Nothing. Or even before they got married, not much really. The couples are just so paper thin, and just like, let's put these couples together, see what happens. I just can't get invested in it. Whereas, as we were saying earlier, we've had so many years of proper character building and relationship building between the likes of Leanne and Nick, even though they've not been together all of the time, obviously, and they've had their ups and downs. I can invest so much more in them as a couple because they've given us something to work with, and they've given them the time. The same with Peter and Carla, I suppose, to a bit of a lesser extent.
I think if I was Alina, I would want to date Adam, because we all know that as soon as we leave the EU, Scotland's going to want another independence vote. They're going to vote to be independent, and then they're going to rejoin the EU. So to get yourself a Scottish husband is the smartest thing you can do right now.
That's her plan. That's her long game, is it? She's smarter than we give her credit for.
Yeah, smarter than me. Married an Englishman.
Yeah, what do you think about Alina's... Has she had a personality change, or was she just being suppressed
when you say personality change, you're kind of insinuating that she's got one at the moment, which I don't really think she does. Just because she says everything in a really nice accent in a softly spoken way doesn't make it a personality.
No, I don't. I can't really say what Alina's personality is, which is a real shame. I so wanted to like her, and I did like her.
I do like her, but only because there's nothing to dislike. She's a nice, pretty young girl. Seems pretty sweet. Everything that I've known about her up till this point made me like her. So
I think in my head, I'm just, as long as she stays in it, there's a glimmer of hope that Jan might come back, possibly.
Yeah.
I missed Jan. Okay, finally.
Make you wonder how much of that is down to the actors' availability because of Brexit.
Yeah, possibly.
I wouldn't blame him. I'd go home.
So, also in the factory this week, we had Sean and Michael, and Sean is wearing the most bizarre costume this week.
What the hell are you talking about? I really liked this outfit. Somebody found it. I can't remember who found it on our Facebook group, and it was
like £60 it cost, doesn't it?
I know. Before, up until very recently, that would have been in a parcel on its way to me right now. I was very close, but obviously I'm not allowed to buy anything anymore.
No, Gemma likes to buy lots of clothes and then return the vast majority of them, don't you?
Or just keep them with the labels on and then never wear them.
No wonder Sean his head exploded when he found out that these football tickets were £300. He's like, I just spent £60 on a black t-shirt with some peacock leaves stuck on the shoulders.
I didn't think that was an unreasonable amount of money for that t-shirt. Also,
it was fabulous.
He was channeling, to me, it felt like he was channeling David from Schitt's Creek. And if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it just for the fashion.
Well, anyway, it's not all about Sean's peacock shouldered t-shirt as much as he wanted it to be. Oh, go on.
Now, we know Sean has worn outlandish fashion in the past, but for me, this felt like a new chapter of them saying Sean's going to wear crazy clothes.
It seemed like a step up.
Definitely felt like a statement piece, and I really would not mind if Sean's thing became weird clothes.
Well, Liz isn't in the programme anymore, so someone's got to take on the mantle behind the bar at the Rovers.
It's about time that somebody, like, we got a man who was expressed himself with fashion. We've had women doing it for years.
Maybe there's just somebody at the costume department that really hates Anthony Cotton and is like, what can we make him wear this week?
I thought it was cool.
It was
It wasn't a bit elaborate, but
it wasn't really out of character for Sean. It was quite fun, but it did raise some eyebrows.
It did, yeah.
It was a note.
It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be, yeah.
Anyway, he's talking to Michael and says that he's going to some seminar, was it? A sales seminar later this afternoon, because he'd vowed last week.
What's that? Whoop, 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 whoop. It's the alarms. It's the BS alarms. Watch out. It's going to be an MLM.
Yeah, which is?
Multi-level marketing.
Which is?
You have to buy stuff and sell it to your family until everybody hates you.
You said he's going to be an Avon lady.
Yeah. Avon's fine, though. Avon is something people want to buy.
But you can't be an Avon lady at the moment, can you? Go around people's houses.
Anytime your business relies on you badgering your friends and family to buy stuff that they wouldn't necessarily have bought, just forget it. I don't know if anybody has watched that Chris Watts documentary that was on Netflix, but he's the guy that murdered his whole family. And one of the things that they left out on the documentary was that she was like knees deep in multiple multi-level marketing companies and made them nearly bankrupt several times.
Well, this sounds like a story just waiting to happen.
I honestly, if they're going to go down this route, this is rife for drama.
Well, they had something similar with Derek and Norris and their dehumidifiers back in the 90s,
yes, they do. That's
didn't
what
they?
it made me think of.
So maybe that's where it's going. I just don't know which one of Michael and Sean is going to be end up being the excellent salesman.
You
I don't
can't
think
both poach the same patch.
Well, this is everything. This is Derek and Norris. This is what happened. They were
Yeah.
fighting over patches. Anyway, Sean's a motivated business type because he vowed last week that in order to impress Dylan, he is going to make a change. So he's coming along. He asked
He's
Michael
bought a
to
new
come along
t-shirt.
too. Yeah. And
It's
they
not what
go
Dylan
off
had
to
in
their
mind.
thing. We don't get to see any of it, of course, but they come back to the street later, very excited. And they're selling what is it, some sort of makeup or something.
Yeah.
I don't understand women's things.
Excuse me, it's not a woman's thing, Michael.
Oh no, it's not because George gets to wear some later,
Yes.
doesn't he? He tries it out. They go over to number 11
You're
George
just
is
limiting
Sean's
your
guinea
own
pig.
life experience if you're going to come into it with that attitude.
And then really the story's not particularly about Sean and Michael anymore. It's more hints that George fancies Eileen
Which we
because
already
he
got.
says Eileen doesn't need makeup. She's beautiful as she is.
But I'll take this for Mary.
Yes. He thinks it's great. He's very impressed by his concealed eye bags, but it's a tad expensive for his taste, so he heads off.
It's like 35 quid for a concealer or something.
Something like that.
I've got-
Mary comes home. Eileen tells her that George has been flirting with her, and Mary says, "C'est la vie. I don't think me and him were suited anyway."
Oh, she gave up quick.
Yeah, she did really. Basically, the gates have been left
Path is
open
clear.
for Eileen and
Choo-choo.
George to get it on.
Yep.
So
Just in time for Christmas. Always remember.
that could be the feel-good Christmas story because we
Always get a new
certainly need
relationship
one the way things are going.
right before your birthday, Christmas, or Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Not so much Easter.
Yeah. Also, we know that there are more deaths and funerals and stuff during the winter months, don't we? So
Well, we know that anyway.
just to be on the safe side. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what we know. That's
we
what,
know, yeah.
So you be on the safe
Don't-
side. Get in
no.
with an undertaker
Don't-
before this time of year, just
no.
in case you
Don't
need one.
pursue an undertaker during a pandemic. He's going to be busy. That's what I say.
He's going to be
Although
off.
he can be raking it in.
Yeah, he is. He's going to
Yeah.
be doing that. Billy's going to be archbishoping, so maybe Paul and Eileen.
It seems obvious now you said it.
I tell you what, I did quite like Sean and Michael together because they're both characters that haven't had much to do.
They get carried away
They're
with
both,
themselves.
yeah, they are. They're both, yeah.
They're kind of infectiously energetic at times about really weird nichey things.
naively optimistic
yeah,
about
good
everything and their
description.
own capabilities.
I don't want them to get
Could
ripped
be
off though.
fun. I like Sean. I like Michael. I'm willing to give it a go. Because I don't know where this story is going, if anywhere, but it seems like it's just an excuse for
The
Todd to
problem-
get in the factory, and now Michael's left the path clear for him.
The thing that happens with things like MLMs and stuff like that is what you do is you're not really working for the company. You're like an independent contractor, so you don't have any protections or any kind of steady income. But you end up having to buy everything yourself. Like the Avon people and the Clean Easy people, they all have to buy their own catalogues. That's why they get mad when you don't give them back.
So we're going to have number 11 stuff full of
Well, it's going to be full
concealer.
of, and like they do things like you have to buy a certain amount to start off with, or like if you don't shift a certain amount every month, you don't get a reward, and so you buy the stuff to hope you sell it on, and then you never do. I mean, it's a fairly common thing.
Yeah, I don't know where the story's going to go apart from one of them's a good salesman, the other one isn't, or neither of them are, or...
Or they end up in debt because they've bought all this product and they can't shift it.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people wanting to buy £35 eye bag concealers in Weatherfield, not high, is it?
Well, no, that's because everyone who lives in Coronation Street is all meticulously
Groomed.
turned out and
Yeah.
groomed. And
Eye bags? What eye bags?
I wonder with Todd working at the factory, how it's going to tie in, if at all, to the Ray closing everything down, because the factory could well be under ownership of Ray and potentially demolished. We know it's not going to happen.
I thought you were going to say
know,
potentially demonic.
in the next month and a half or so. So maybe Todd is now going to have some personal stake in helping to take Ray down, possibly. I don't know.
Him to crusade. He's only just got there.
Final bit. Well, we just had Peter and Carla getting back from their sailing trip round. Where did they go? Portugal, was it, I think? Or am I making that up? I don't know. Oh, no. I'm thinking of Audrey in Classic Coronation Street. She's just come back from Portugal.
They've gone sailing.
They both did. I don't know. They've been sailing away, and
they're catching up.
It feels like that.
About Scott.
Yeah, it feels like that storyline's going to come back to the forefront next week. It felt like they were going to go further with it on Monday, but it's basically Peter saying, "Oh, I hear you've been getting up to all sorts." Peter's kind of teasing Johnny, not knowing that he's actually getting very close to the truth when he talks about Johnny being a naughty boy and is that the police that I hear coming round, and Johnny's looking like he's repressing a panic attack.
Yeah.
And Carla notices and thinks, what's going on with Johnny? He looks like he's looking a bit guilty there. So I assume next week Carla might find out just how knee deep in it Johnny is. And I still think, that thing that I said last week when Jenny told Johnny, we're not talking about this anymore, I think that might start to cause some issues because she's going to be wanting to move on. He's clearly not got over it. So possibly friction there.
Oh, good.
We'll have to see. And that is it for this week's Coronation Street. We whizzed through those factory storylines, but it was really Oliver in the spotlight this week, and I think we gave a good old chunk of time to that. So time for the scores and the character of the week. To be honest, I thought that Monday and Wednesdays was relatively unremarkable, apart from some of the great stuff in the Ollie Wobbles storyline. I mean, Jane Danson was just superb this week, and I think, to be honest, most of the main players in that storyline did a really, really good job. Tonight's episode was superb, and whatever trajectory this week was going on Monday and Wednesday, this week bumped it up an extra point or so. This Friday bumped it up an extra point or so. But yeah, the stuff that wasn't Ollie drags it down. So it's a hard one, really.
Get your finger out your mouth.
It feels cruel, and maybe it should be higher, but I don't want to just base it on this week's episode. So
what do you mean you don't want to base it on this week's episode?
No, I don't want to base it just on tonight's episode. I mean, I'm to and fro-ing, because if I say 3.5, it feels low, but then if I just got tonight's episode in my head, but then Monday and Wednesdays was quite good with the Ollie stuff as well. Then
I think it's a 4.
Or maybe
for me.
I'll go for it. It's a 4, but a low 4.
4 triple G&Ts, that will get you going, won't it?
12 shots of G&T. I am going to give it...
You don't get a shot of G&T.
I don't understand alcohol. I'm going to give it 4 big owls or something out of 5.
Yeah. Character of the week is obviously Leanne for me.
I am going to give it to Steve.
Oh, you? Okay.
I am. What? Apart from the acting, why are you giving it to Leanne?
Well, what do you mean from the acting? Apart from the fact that she gave a really amazing performance.
So are you giving it to Jane?
Best soap performances of many a year. Well, yeah, I've got to give it to her because her defences are being taken away bit by bit, aren't they? And she's kind of, and now she's truly alone at the end of this week.
Well, I mean, apart from Toya, possibly.
Well, yeah.
There are people around who will support her.
All right.
But no, I know what you mean.
It's not your character.
It seems like a nice, obvious, easy choice to go for Leanne.
Yeah. That's why I made it.
But for character-wise, I'm going to give it to Steve because he's had to make a really, really tough decision that no parent would ever want to make. But he has, and he stood up to Leanne. He's letting Ollie go. He's doing it for, it's for the best. I think Simon Gregson did do some good work. So some of those scenes where he was reading the Mr. Men book, the bit where he was saying, "Sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you."
I wouldn't say it was.
It was absolutely not Jane Danson level. I mean, nobody can say that, can they?
It was almost unfair to have them in the same scene because of how well
it was
she does, and he was keeping up just about.
Yeah, but I mean,
but his character is very difficult to switch gears.
Yeah, if Steve had started reacting in the same way as Leanne and blubbing and screaming and being, you know, uncontrollably hysterical, it would be like, well, Steve's not like that, and the fact that he was kind of
a gendered word,
staying silent and
shouldn't use that.
You know, looking very pained and reflective about it. It fit with the character.
It did. It was a really tough gig.
Really
he had
tough
a tough
gig.
job. He had probably one of the toughest jobs because his character isn't normally like this. It was. I mean, Jane Danson. It was like, right, just go. This is full blast. Just throw all your emotions at the wall, and cry and scream, and you know. I mean, I'm not saying she had an easy job, but compared to what Simon Gregson had to do, which is to take a comic character and make him into a bleak sort of lost all hope kind of tricky, very tricky.
Yeah, and Corrie fans talk about Jimmy Harkishin deving when he goes a bit over the top, and Steve is certainly Stevie when he doesn't need to, and he was Steving a little bit at the beginning of today's episode when he was doing his Mr. Men reading, and he was being a bit over the top with it and a bit too.
Well, he's your character of the week, so
a bit too bug-eyed and comical, sort of like. Sort of.
No,
but
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you there.
But when he needed to be in the second half of the episode, particularly, or even second 2/3, or second two, you know what I mean. I think he did well, and because of that, and because of the difficult decisions that character had to make, and he's not gone down the easy path, and that's what I think it was him that was saying it. Like, this is the toughest thing I've ever had to do.
Yeah.
But making that decision where Leanne is just in denial about it and unable or refusing to make this toughest decision. That's why I'm giving it to Steve rather than Leanne. Actually,
good.
Right. So I think that's it with our street talk.